Marvel Studios' own Kevin Feige explains why there's not a ton of cameos and other heroes constantly dropping by on the Disney Plus series, and why that's more than likely not going to change in the foreseeable future. And, you know, it makes sense. So quite obviously, so far when it comes to everything they've done with Disney Plus and the MCU side of it, we've had a couple of those moments. We had Don Cheadle's Rhodey appear in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier because it actually worked there. Like, it perfectly fit in terms of story for that character to be there related to that moment in time. Like, if he wasn't there, that'd be the bigger late. You could have really fit Rhodey in there. Why doesn't he show up? So that worked, but having random things just appear out of nowhere, or random characters appear out of nowhere, they have to somewhat service the plot. So recently, in relation to everything going on with Hawkeye and other upcoming series, Feige was asked about more cameos, and he specifically said that that's not the point. Sometimes it makes sense, and then you do it, and it works in terms of the story, just like in the comics. But the bigger, grand scope of everything, it doesn't make sense to just do it if it doesn't make sense. And again, you do have to kind of think about what he's saying in the grand scheme of the story and understand it. And he said, when you look at Hawkeye, for example, it's about getting to know Clint and who he is and what he's doing now, and getting to learn who Kate is and how she's going to be appearing in future projects and what this sets up. And of course, some other surprises in store for us. We know Yelena is going to show up. Again, that's a pretty big thing, but it services the plot. It services what's going on with that specific character and Clint's connection to Natasha. So when you really think about it, well, why doesn't Spider-Man show up to help Clint? Well, why? I mean, the two don't really have much in common other than they were in this one thing. Did they ever even like really exchange many words or anything with one another? Not that we've seen, really, right? So it's completely different. But Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, well, yeah, they're a little bit more familiar with one another, and, well, Spider-Man's going to try to get help from Doctor Strange. So you kind of get it. And it goes back to that whole Netflix thing where some of the crossovers and meetups felt a little contrived because they wanted to make them happen. And again, many of those aspects actually did sort of work in theory because you're like, well, look, they're all literally living right around Hell's Kitchen, so you can make it possible. Luke Cage, notwithstanding, because he was a little bit more up north, but you could cheese your way into it, and they did their best. Sometimes it felt a little forced, but ultimately, it's got to work in service of the story instead of just a gratuitous cameo. And if you guys remember, way back when, Phase 1 is happening. But why doesn't this? Why doesn't that? Why doesn't this? Phase 2. Well, why doesn't Iron Man have help from X? Why doesn't this guy help Y? And so forth. Then you get into Phase 3 and we're getting more of that. People are like, this is stupid. Why aren't they just doing it on their own? Why does Iron Boy Jr. need help always? Well, that's literally what you said was bad because they did not. Never mind. AKA, you can't please the person who's never going to be pleased because they just don't like the product. Or they have a narrative. Or they're edgy.